Everyone, welcome to today's event. Thank you for braving the elements and coming to our Black History Month event. I was telling individuals that we had 120 students who were going to come, but due to the weather, of course, schools closed and they aren't able to be here. But glad to have you all, and we will push forward. Really appreciate you coming today. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm Lynn Stevens with the Governor's Office. I'm Director of Minority Affairs, which basically means I'm his liaison to the minority community, and I travel around the state meeting with groups, organizations in the minority community, introducing myself and seeing if there may be an issue going on that we can help with at the state level, or if not, in the future, they'll have a contact and can follow up with our office. We also invite you to invite the governor to various events you're having in your areas with your organization, and schedule permitting, we would be happy to try to get him there. But if he's not able to go, myself and other staff members are his representatives, and we attend on his behalf as well, events and present proclamations, congratulatory letters, etc., etc. Well, today's event came about at the actual suggestion of Mr. Paul LaRue, who's going to be doing a presentation in a few short minutes here. And I hadn't thought about doing a Black History Month event, but I was like, wow, that's a great idea. And I just hope to present some information that you may not have known before today, and we want to highlight African Americans in Ohio's history. So I do hope you enjoy today's event. With that, we are going to ask everyone to stand, and we're going to sing the first verse of Lift Every Voice and Sing, if we could. Our vocalist is not here. Maybe the weather has delayed her, but we're going to have a short instrumental version played on the screen here. Eric Hinton. Whenever you're ready, Eric. So if everyone could just stand up, please. The words on the back page of your agenda. Great, thank you. Please be seated. Next, we will have a video message from Governor Kasich. He could not be here today, unfortunately. And these are remarks that he gave at the state.
To introduce the governor of the state of Ohio, John R. Kasich.
He made these remarks at the Martin Luther King Day event the state had in January.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lift every voice and sing. It's a beautiful hymn. If you look at the third stanza carefully, God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, Thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, Thou who hast by Thy might led us into the light. Keep us forever in the path, Lord, we pray. Lest our feet stray from the places, our God, where we met thee. Lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget thee. Powerful, powerful words. Means we have to keep on keeping on. But it also means that the Lord has lifted people to their righteous and equal place. We know we must keep striving. You know, Martin Luther King is one of the heroes of mine. First of all, we think about Martin Luther King, and sometimes we think about the public policy accomplishments, which were huge. But they were, frankly, in my opinion, a manifestation of his amazing faith. Reverend Martin Luther King. Reverend Martin Luther King. Man of God. Martin Luther King's motivations, his strong faith, his morality, all flowed from the power of the Old and the New Testament. He was rooted in the power of the Old and the New Testament. And Martin Luther King, in my opinion, allowed himself to be plugged into the greatest generator of the world, and that is the connection with the Almighty. When individuals and human beings are able to literally connect themselves, to plug them into the generator and the circuit of the Lord, it's amazing what they can accomplish. You know, Martin Luther King didn't start out as the great Reverend Martin Luther King. He was a reverend in a church. But for some reason, the Lord took him and plugged him in to his power. And he maintained it because he maintained his humility. And he sought to serve the Lord. His heart was not drunk with the wine of the world. He did not stray from the places where he met the Lord. And it's so easy for all of us to stray from the places where we meet the Lord and to let the wine of the world and the distractions of the world keep us from improving this world. Martin Luther King was a man of nonviolence. God tells us to love even those who hate us. He could achieve it. Oh, I mean, for all of us who face criticisms and personal attacks and something posted on Facebook or whatever, compare that to beatings. Compare that to being gassed. Compare that to the dogs being set on you. Compare that to sitting in prison. And Martin Luther King told his followers, and a great leader has to have great followers. He told his followers, we will not respond in kind. The Lord doesn't want us, when we experience violence, to respond in violence. If I'm slapped in the face 7 times I shall forgive. Am I right, Reverend? Wow. He never lost the hope and the faith and the power of the Lord. A young shepherd boy showed up on the battlefield one day to face a 9-foot Goliath. And the king told the shepherd boy, you put the helmet on and you put my armor on. And the young shepherd boy walked around in circles. He couldn't fight. He said, my power does not lie in the helmets or the armor. My power rests in the Lord Almighty. And he slayed that Goliath. and became a king, a man in God's own heart. So was Dr. King. Dr. King slayed a Goliath. It was the Goliath of hatred and prejudice. It's amazing in America it was so soon that went on, and it is amazing that even today that racism, discrimination exists in this society. And that's why we cannot permit ourselves to be drunk on the wine of the world. Was there anything more inspiring than Martin Luther's letter from a Birmingham jail? No law of man that doesn't square with the law of God is just or moral. Read it. Read that letter. I say that he is an inspiration to me because as a man with feet of clay, I don't want to be drunk on the wine of the world. I want to be in a position to have an office like this, to do the things that make him smile. In our state, we're now up 132,000 jobs, which means 132,000 families are better. To me, the greatest moral issue in America today is giving a man or a woman a chance to have a job and to find their God-given destiny. We're winning, but we were down a lot in the first half. Got a long way to go. Education. Pretty soon we'll be unveiling a plan to give our kids a chance to be educated and to have opportunity. There's no place in that exercise in considering politics. You don't distribute resources on the basis of who's going to like you and who's not. You distribute resources on the basis of making sure that every child in our state has an opportunity to compete with every other child in this state. And it's pretty easy when you strip the politics out. In higher education, we strive to graduate more students. We know that the student graduation rates are low across the board, but for minorities, they're unacceptably low. But yet our universities and our colleges have made a commitment to change the emphasis from enrollment to graduation. Give our people a degree, you give them hope. You give them a chance. And speaking of hope and a chance, collateral sanctions and sentencing reform. It sat on the docket for 25 years. But we believe that people deserve a second chance. And we don't believe that the solution to all these problems is to lock somebody up in a state prison. Nonviolent offenders don't belong there. Oh, they've got to pay the price for their penalty. But we can do it in a way that allows them to have a second chance, and with collateral sanctions. So many of our folks who have made an effort to rehabilitate their lives found themselves stuck in no man's land. Those laws are changed today in the state of Ohio. I believe it represents more justice for all Ohioans, and particularly for those minorities who have been caught in that never never land. And you know, when the sun broke through one day, when the legislature was able to work along with the administration and along with the great people of Cleveland to set the children free in the Cleveland public schools, working with the community, the business leaders, the unions, the concerned moms and dads and the teachers. And I hope that what happened in Cleveland is going to provide the inspiration to school districts all over Ohio to put children first and to remember that public education is about children and not about adults. And we work aggressively on giving minorities an opportunity to share in the business of the state of Ohio. For too long, the law's been on the books. Lip service. I don't like lip service. Tell me the truth. Level with me. Tell me what we're going to do. And our director, Bob Blair, is working to make sure that minorities can share in the contracting business of the state of Ohio in an aggressive way. You see, because we are now asking our departments at the beginning of the planning process to figure out how to include minorities so we can grow more businesses and spur more entrepreneurship in our state. It's a speckle of what Dr. King was able to do in his life. You think about Dr. King, you think about William Wilberforce. These are great men who accomplished great things. But let them not just be in a history book. Let them be a burning flame who can inspire all of us against what at times can seem to be impossibly long odds. And let's not forget the fact that at the end of the day, the Lord is in charge. And if we can remember Him on the road where we met Him and meet Him regularly in a humble and contrite way, we can make this world a better place for everyone. God bless you.
Thank you, Eric. And next, that's fine. Those are heartfelt words from the governor. It's I don't get to see him much, but maybe once a week or so, and maybe every 2 weeks, I actually have a meeting with him on the minority business issue, and you can just sense his sincerity when he talks, and I really believe that he would not say anything that he does not believe. So I just thought I would share that. He's a very sincere person and believes that the Lord has placed him in this position to do good. Mr. Along. Hi, Mr. Along. Very nice to see you. Okay, are you ready for a musical selection then? Because that's where we're at on the agenda. And thank you. Mr. Along agreed to participate with such short notice, and she participated with other state events previously. Thank you.
Sorry I'm late, however, the roads were really bad and we didn't know where to go out there, so I'm going to do a Black Negro spiritual, Go Down Moses, Let My People Go. We need roads in the Pharaoh's land. Let my people go. Oppressed so hard they could not stand. Let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt's land. Tell old Pharaoh to let my people go.
Thank you very much, Ms. Long. Next, we will have our presentation on Granville T. Woods by Mr. Paul LaRue. And Mr. Paul LaRue, he's such a wonderful person. I met Mr. Paul LaRue, I think, in 1999 when I was working with U.S. Senator George Voinovich's office in Cincinnati at the time. And by chance, we learned, maybe he sent a letter, we learned about a project he was working on for headstones for African-American soldiers in the Fayette County area. And from there, it was just project after project. He's so creative, and he brings history alive for his students there at Washington Courthouse. And you just learn so much just by talking with them, by learning of their projects each year. And he makes it fun for the students. They really love every project that they've worked on with him. He drove up here in the weather, but thank you so much. The students, their school was closed as well there. He graciously drove, and we appreciate you being here. So with that, we'll present Mr. Paul LaRue. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. I had 35 students who were anxious. This was going to be our big kind of celebration at the end of the grading period, so they're a little disappointed, although, as I say, they're probably all still in bed, so there's some consolation. This is actually the first snow day we've missed this year, so, you know, you can plan for everything but the weather, but glad to be here nonetheless. And I should mention, the program, as well as the presentation and the presenters, was put together by my students. So I want to give credit where credit's due, and they worked with Lynn on the program and all of that, so they're not here, but I do want to give them credit. And also on our program we mentioned, as I look at these gentlemen on the front row, we call our living legends. You know, we talk about great Ohioans, and I always feel like I'm in, you know, when I'm around these men, these legends, that it's something that I think it empowers all of us, and I'm definitely bummed that my students aren't here today to have that experience, but I will take back to Washington Courthouse what's happened today. This year, every year, the Capitol Square does what they call Great Ohioans, and my students, along with I guess some others, nominated Granville T. Woods for this year's class. And just a couple of interesting things that you may or may not know about Granville T. Woods. One of the things that amazed us was, here's a guy between 1880 and 1910, he has 49 patents. Not one, not two, not three, at a time when it was very hard for anyone to invent. All right, he was able to do, you know, it says, you know, 50, it was actually 49 patents, and these were things that helped life at the time. And the thing that was most amazing for my students, there's a railroad map of Ohio in 1902. Granville Woods lived in our community. He worked in Washington Courthouse from 1878 to 1880. And it's amazing. I don't know if you can see the little red dot on the map, but it was actually the place where he lived. And in fact, he tells in his things, he says at one point, you know, he was a railroad engineer. And a lot of his early education was practical, hands-on. You know, he was a practical engineer. So his inventing grew out of this, you know, working on the railroad. And so for my students who always think important stuff happens in New York City or happens someplace else, to think, hey, here's this amazing man, and he was working in our town. You know, he lived in our little rural community. So it's kind of it was neat for my students to see that there was, you know, that there was a connection to that. A woman contacted me by phone. I did not know this woman, and she said, I would like you to bring your students out. This is a rural farm in western Fayette County, where we're from. She goes, I never connected it, but my great-grandfather rented a room to Granville T. Woods. When he was on the railroad, he needed a place to live. He was a single man at that time. And so for my students and I, and you can see the room, to walk into this room, and we were able to take pictures, and it was kind of amazing. We felt like, we were close to Granville Woods. I mean, he was, literally he lived in this room. So it's kind of neat because we're rural, so nobody ever throws anything away or gets rid of anything. I mean, it's kind of neat that this place, and apparently he lived here for a time. He either helped work for the farmer let him live there. So, I mean, these are these kind of neat things that we find as we go. One of the other stories that Granville Woods tells, his very first idea for a patent came while he was a railroad engineer driving between Washington Courthouse and Dayton. And actually, the Beckel House, which is in the postcard, he's at the Beckel House and he sees an elevator and he has the inspiration for what will be his very first patent or his very first idea. And again, I think there's a certain power in these things that are around. He was on the railroad. He actually drove between several times to the Soldiers' Home, which was in the, which is now the Dayton VA, was part of his thing. So he's, and again, this is the quotation there. He tells his story, but again, he mentions Washington Courthouse, which is where he came up with his original induction telegraph. This was one of his original patents. Another interesting thing for us, which we also learned along the way, is he married Sadie Turner, who was his first wife. And if you notice down in the bottom corner, the newspaper is in German. The only reason we know this because the Hamilton County records burned. But there was a German newspaper in Cincinnati, and Granville T. Woods married Sadie Turner. Sadie Turner was a young lady from Washington Courthouse. So not only did he learn some of his early inventing ideas, but he met, his first wife. She will later move back to Washington Courthouse. One of the projects my students and I were working on this year, she is buried in an unmarked grave in Washington Cemetery, in Washington Courthouse. And so my students, with the help of an archaeologist and ground-penetrating radar, which is what you're looking at right there, we were looking for, if you can see where the arrow is, there's actually just a little stake there, which is close to where her burial site was. But again, she had no headstone. And so these are my students using ground-penetrating radar to find her burial site. Because we are very committed to A, finding where she's buried, and B, we are going to get a headstone and give her a proper burial. Okay, I mean, it's amazing that the wife of Granville T. Woods has no headstone. And you could almost throw a rock from my high school to where the cemetery is. So again, for my students, this is a powerful, and you see my students are smiling because they're out of school, just like had they come up here today. They're always happy when they're not in school, and I think that's important. You need to get students out and doing real things, okay? And so here they're operating ground-penetrating radar. This is some other of the engineering, because what we did is we used a laser transit to mark all the headstones in the area. And I'm going to jump to, if you can see, what this actually is what the ground-penetrating radar shows, and we were very fortunate. We got a strong image there, and if you see the X on the map, the X is where we believe Sadie Turner's grave is, right here. And we will be, and I would love if you guys come down to Washington Courthouse in the spring sometime, because we're going to have a ceremony when we finally give her the proper grave that she deserves. In fact, this is one of my seniors. This will be one of their final projects that we'll be doing before the school's out. So anyhow, it is a neat way to get young people connected with the community and connected with history. And that's really what we're all about, and we're fortunate to have Granville T. Woods, this great man living in our community, to give us this opportunity. So with that, we'd like to thank, again, Lynn has been great. Lynn gives me the big build-up. Hey, she's great. If I need something, she always helps me out. We've been real fortunate in working with her. Time Warner Cable actually provided us with the funding for the ground-penetrating radar. I live in a wonderful community, but we are poor. We are 60% free lunch, okay? Which I think sometimes will surprise people, but we are I live in a rich community, but I don't live in a resource-rich community. And so, we're blessed to have the support that we have from all kinds of folks. So anyhow, with that, I would like to thank you.
Wow, that was great. I learned something new. Hope you all did as well. Thank you, Mr. LaRue. Thank you. And next, before our keynote speakers, the Tuskegee Airmen, we have Elder Tony West will do an African drum presentation. I work with Tony West and his lovely wife, Miss Aziza West, to coordinate this appearance today. They work together to draw inspiration from a variety of sources, from the vibrant style of West African drumming and dance to South and East African music, from the catchy rhythms of Latin America to popular line dances from the United States. They have an exciting and highly engaged teaching style, encouraging participation by students and teachers to help better understand the history and culture behind dance and music traditions from throughout the world. For over 29 years, Tony and Aziza have conducted artist residencies, performances, workshops, teacher in-services, and professional development programs that have contributed to the cultural and educational life of communities throughout Ohio and the United States. With that, I'd like to present Elder Tony West. He has a few remarks before he does his presentation. So thank you very much for participating today, Mr. West.
Good morning. Good morning. Is there anyone here who comes back and is older than 7? All right. May I have your permission to begin? Yes, sir. Now, what I just did was go back in our history, because in our history, without our elders' permission, I can't move forward. If they had asked me questions, I would have had to answer. If they had said no, I would have had to say that. This line that we're talking about is giving respect to those who have gone before you. And that's what this History Month is really about. It's giving respect to those who have gone before you in the African American or Black culture. And that respect sometimes is understood and sometimes is misunderstood. I would like to point out one clear piece for today. All the men that were mentioned there, especially by the governor, there was women, strong Black women, in some places they were, strong Black women behind them that took the brunt of everything they took and even more. And in each case, these women have to stand up when it wasn't time for them to stand up, but because their husbands stood up, they stood up. So I want us to recognize and take a look at that balance, because when we start talking about the voice of the male, we have to also understand that it's also the voice of the female that is with us. For instance, right now, if I say a name and you hear that name and you see that picture of that male, you automatically need to see that picture of that female that's in his life. For instance, Barack Obama. Oh, thank you very much. Immediately, and that's not the president's party, but sometimes you get tricked when you get the president's party when you leave out the other party. So what we're looking at is that balance, and this is what the African culture is really based on, is that balance between right and wrong, up and down, left and right. We call it the duality of opposites. In other words, they cannot be daylight without night. They cannot be day without night. They cannot be hot without cold. There cannot be rain, storm without sunshine. They go together. They balance each other out. And the children of the movement that we would say definitely are part of what is here. Now, what I have here is a voice. This drum, or drums like this, were not allowed to come to the Americans when what we would call forcefully labor. But you have another word that we use, and that word is, what is it? Sign say y'all can't say nothing. Well, what's that word? Slavery. Oh, okay, that's that word, right? Okay, just like in the Emancipation Proclamation, that was a document to confiscate property from those states that were in rebellion against the United States. So if you were property, it got confiscated. You know, the chickens, the cows, the land, the people, you know, that whole kind of thing. So rising above that Martin Luther, the first Martin Luther, was running away from the Catholic Church. Because he told the Catholic Church, I'm not following any rules. And in doing so, the Catholic Church then, you automatically get a sentence to death, where they excommunicate you. They send out a group to take care of you, but they cannot spill your blood. They have to deal with you. But Martin Luther had a group of people who surrounded him and protected him and his family. We fast forward to Martin Luther King Jr. Now, I put the junior part in there because his father was there. He said, I'm not going to follow it out. I'm going to do it this way according to the, like the governor said. The question was, when it came time to protect him, oh by the way, Martin Luther, the German Martin Luther, he didn't get killed. The death sentence was set out, the people were set out to do that, he didn't get killed. Did we protect Martin Luther King Jr.? Did we protect Martin Luther King Jr.? What the sign went back up again? Huh? Now remember, the governor said that the message was coming through his faith. And if we had the same faith, we were supposed to be able to step up to the plate and what? Protect him. So the question then begins, or becomes, do we protect that which we say we have faith in that we own? This gentleman of the Tuskegee went through a lot of silver, a lot of fire. Yeah. Did we step up and protect them? Who are we protecting and what are we protecting now is the question. And that brings me to the drum. This drum was not allowed, any of the African drums who came when we came, were not allowed to come to the United States because it has a voice. And its voice talks to his people. And so therefore, the folks who brought the folks said, let's not bring that voice here. Let's not have them talk to each other. Let's keep that voice away. And as that voice begins to talk, it begins to say things that folks understand. For instance, I'll just run you through a little quick piece right now. It has three basic notes that we all have to hear. The first one is what we call the mother. She sits on the bottom. She's the foundation. That beautiful voice from her sister over here, when she started out, go down, ooh, that was like, that you could feel the bottom in it, although she wasn't there. That voice is right in there. And when you hear this, you respond with your feet. So if I do, you do, I can see y'all, this is not television. Okay, so if I do, you do, let's just try this group over here. Y'all sitting further back, y'all don't think I see it. Okay, okay. So you begin to learn the language. So this is the base, the foundation of the music. Just like when I go to a party, if there's no bass in the music, I'm going to find out if the machine broke. And if I can't fix the bass, I'm gone. I'm leaving. So, y'all good. Y'all be quiet. I'm gonna have to go over here with you. Maybe I got on this hat right there. Okay. There we go. You do too, we do. Okay. So what we find out is that the listening becomes important because the sound is telling you the message, and the listening of what the sound is doing is important. So we have so then we begin to put those together. Now, what happens is you gotta have enthusiasm about what you're doing, because if you don't have enthusiasm about it, the message doesn't get across. But you see the little lady right there? Little lady dancing. Running the movement. Y'all, okay, I'm gonna finish up. Okay? So you have the three notes as they came in. It's really more than three. So as we began to do that, we would start out just this here. Yeah, bring that. Right. Got that ball. Hip hop, hip hop, hip hop. Come on, come on. There you go. I know we're so used to PBs, huh? Thank you. Not only is it here now, we also have dance companies and stuff that are also doing doing the rhythm. This how I lost my other hat. Thank you. They never put on the he got real old. He did.
Thank you very much, Elder West. Thank you so very much. Wow, learned something else again today, new. And next, for our final presentation, we have the Tuskegee Airmen, the Ohio Memorial Chapter. Mr. Ed Morass, living legends, definitely. Mr. Ed Morass is the president of the Ohio Memorial Chapter. He was born in February 14th, on Valentine's Day, in Huxford, Alabama, and enlisted into the Air Force in February 1956, served until March 1976, and he was assigned to a number of different bases, including an assignment at Lockbourne Air Force Base here in Columbus. After retiring from the Air Force, Mr. Morass studied graphic communication and management at CTI Institute in Columbus and transferred to Park College in Missouri and graduated in 1981 with a bachelor's degree in management. He's married to the late Clarice Morass and is the father of two sons, Kevin and Lewis. He's an avid tennis player and belongs to a local tennis club, plays tennis regularly, and is a member of the United States Tennis Association. He's a member of Barnett Road Baptist Church, where senior pastor is Kevin Thomas. I present to you Mr. Ed Morass and the Tuskegee Airmen Ohio Memorial Chapter. Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you. I don't know if I can come up to the scale the gentleman did with the drums and get everybody's attention. I thought that was really well. So I am Ed Morass, the president of the Ohio Memorial Chapter of the Tuskegee Airmen, and with me today I have four other gentlemen. I'm going to ask Don to stand because Don is an original Tuskegee Airman. His home happens to be here in Columbus. The rest of us, we have about 70 members, and what we do is try to keep the legacy of the Tuskegee Airmen alive. But we have a great program. We have our education program. I like the emphasis that the governor put on education, because it doesn't only help the kids, it helps society. Because if we educate the kids, it educates our community. And if we educate our community, we educate the nation. So education is a very important part of our society, and we all should do as much as we can to make sure we get that across to our kids. Now, the Tuskegee Airmen has incorporated, we have 53 chapters throughout the United States, and education is one of our major goals. What we do, kids have to have at least a 3.0 grade point average. They have to major in science, math, English, or something in aviation. And last year, locally, we were able to give away 3 national scholarships. And because of this communities we get, community support we get from different corporations, we are able to give away 3 local grants. The information that I'm talking about, you can get it on the website. It's www.tuskegee-airmen-omc.com. So I'd like for you to go out, particularly if you got kids, go out there and look at that and see what we're doing, plus the information's out there for you to apply for the scholarships too. So with that, we're going to show a part of a DVD, is that right? And I'd like to thank them for having us out, come out today to do this. So we're very appreciative of it. Thank you, ma'am.
September 1st, 1939. A brutal surprise attack by Hitler's Germany on neighboring Poland. Central to Germany's plan for overwhelming victory was its air force, the Luftwaffe. Days later, Britain and France declared war against Germany. World War II had begun. But with bombs falling in Europe, Americans geared up to fight, Black America included.
I believe it was my duty and responsibility, my father did and my grandfather did, that the country's in trouble, you work for it, you do what you have to do.
You can't turn your back on your own country. So we're as patriotic as anybody else. And so we wanted our chance to prove that we could do something.
But for African Americans, answering the call of duty meant defending a country that saw them as second-class citizens. The Pittsburgh Courier, the leading black newspaper of the day, called for a national campaign to fight for a double victory.
African Americans were actually fighting a war on two fronts. The standard war that everyone else understood, which was for victory over fascism. But the double V, the other prong, meant victory over racism and discrimination at home in the United States.
Your nation calls on you to go out and fight and die for your country, and you can't even sit down in a restaurant and eat a hot dog. It's not a pleasant feeling when you look at it in the long range and you think, what am I giving my life for? What am I volunteering to die for?
If you became a pilot in the United States Air Force, you automatically became a commissioned officer, which meant that you could give any white non-commissioned officer orders.
For the Air Corps, it was unthinkable for blacks to command whites, let alone fly airplanes. As justification, Air Corps leaders pointed to a 1925 report written by the Army itself.
The document said that Negroes were lazy, they didn't have enough sense, they had no coordination.
And they lacked the intelligence to handle sophisticated type of chores like driving tanks or flying airplanes, and even if they did, they lacked the bravery to successfully engage in combat.
This 1925 War College report really reflects the racist atmosphere in the United States in the interwar period.
The 1925 study became really influential, and it's very unfortunate that it did, because it remained influential into the late 1930s, early 1940s.
Under orders from the White House, the Army reluctantly activated the nation's first black aviation unit, the 99th Pursuit Squadron. The unit would be made up of just 33 pilots and several hundred ground crew, a tiny fraction of the 30,000 pilots the Army planned to train.
The generals refer to it without any irony whatsoever all the way through as the experiment.
Thousands of young, ambitious black men applied for the coveted spots.
In order to get into the cadet training program, black or white, one had to have at least 2 years of college, at a time when I think fewer than 1% of African Americans had a college degree. So this really is the cream of the crop.
I really didn't care whether it was segregated unit or non-segregated. I wanted to fly, and I would do anything. to get the opportunity to fly.
Flying itself was so much fun. In the air, there's no black or white or green or whatever. You're a pilot. And that helped to mute some of the racism on the ground because we wanted to fly. That was it. We wanted to fly.
You keep finding that the great majority of officers really would like to scuttle this whole operation. But there are enlightened white officers at every point that are instrumental in helping it to succeed.
One such individual took command at Tuskegee in early 1943, a young colonel from the South, Noel Parrish.
He did tell us that he would be fair with us, and that word was very important. And I have to admit that the man kept his word to the T.
America had been at war for more than a year. The U.S. and its allies, Britain and the Soviet Union, were attacking German-held positions from all sides. On April 1st, 1943, after a 6-month wait, the men of the 99th got the word and started packing, and bound for North Africa. The airmen's assignment? Drive the Germans out of Pantelleria, a strategic stepping stone to the Italian peninsula. Sorties against the heavily fortified island began with ground strafing missions.
That's the worst mission a fighter jock could have, was strafing. You're going at a stationary target, but there's stationary gunners out there. They're not moving. And they can just sit there and track you across the horizon.
In just 2 weeks, air power alone brought Pantelleria to its knees. By the fall of 1944, the Red Tails escorted bombers day in and day out. Along with the new high-profile assignment came a spectacular new airplane. The most advanced tactical fighter in the war, the P-51 Mustang.
Well, I think it felt like going from a Model 8 Ford to a jet. It was a real transition, a real fine one.
My check out in the P-51, that was half scary and half joyous. Once I got the bird in the air, hey, I was in hog heaven, you know, because it was a nice fine bird.
Flight speeds of 440 miles an hour, excellent high altitude performance. You've got the plane to match up now and go the distance.
As the bombers pushed deeper into enemy territory, the escort missions became increasingly dangerous.
All of those targets were heavily guarded. They had all kinds of flak zones down there. And we could see all this flak coming up, you know.
They'd fired from the ground, and when the shell explodes, it throws all these pieces out. That's what tore airplanes apart. We couldn't do anything about the flak, but good chance I wouldn't be here today if it hadn't been for that fighter protection.
The missions went on and on and on.
These guys were playing Russian roulette. The life expectancy of a fighter pilot was probably 15 to 20 missions.
Keep in mind that we're talking about guys who were 19 like myself. The old dudes were 23, you know. They had just passed teenage and just gotten there. And to accept and live with these losses was something they had to grow into.
You've flown with a guy all day, and I saw 2 of them get killed. There's an empty bed over there, and you don't rest well that night.
March 24th, 1945. Pilots were called to the briefing room. Their mission? Escort B-17 bombers on the first leg of an attack on Berlin. Their direct orders? Protect the bombers at all costs. Halfway through the mission, something went wrong.
We were supposed to be relieved by a white fighter group, and they didn't show up because they had weather problems.
Knowing they'd be pushing their fuel supplies to the limit, the fighter pilots stuck with the bombers and headed to Berlin. As the warplanes approached the target, they suddenly came face to face with the enemy. One of Hitler's secret weapons, the world's first jet fighters.
When they tell you you have the best fighter plane in the sky, and all of a sudden you see a couple of fellas come flying rings around you, and there's nothing you can do about it, that's a pretty helpless feeling.
The planes were Messerschmitt 262s.
Me-262 has a speed that is actually 100 miles in excess of what a Mustang can achieve.
I knew what they were. They were coming in to attack the bombers. And I said, drop your tanks, follow me.
The Red Tail pilots had just one advantage over the Nazi jets: maneuverability.
Instead of going this way, I went down, turned the plane upside down, went down under the bombers, and then made a hard right turn, and I caught one of the jets just as he was coming in to shoot down the B-17. I hit him broad stream, boom, he blew up. Bailed out.
The Red Tails downed 2 more of Hitler's ferocious jets. The Berlin mission earned the Red Tails a Distinguished Unit Citation for outstanding performance of duty. A year after the War Department had almost pulled the Black Airmen from combat, top brass from the Army Air Forces visited Ramitelli to personally decorate 4 of the group's pilots. On May 8th, 1945, Germany surrendered, bringing the war in Europe to an end. All told, America's first black fighter pilots had flown more than 1,500 missions, shooting down a total of 112 enemy aircraft. Over the summer, their fellow airmen began returning home.
Coming into New York Harbor with the flags waving and everybody exhilarating, Statue of Liberty.
Down the gangplank we go. There's a soldier that has a sign, white troops this way, colored troops this way.
Back home, back to reality. Segregation, discrimination, and everything else that went along with it.
The double victory had yet to be won. 3 years after the war's end, President Truman issued Executive Order 9981, officially banning segregation in the United States military. Within a year, the Red Tails were inactivated.
I moved forward with the attitude that this is going to be progress. And over the years, it proved just that.
The U.S. Air Force, which had become a separate branch of the military in 1947, was one of the first national institutions to integrate.
In many respects, the civil rights movement grows really right out of World War II and the World War II experience.
It was a time in history that we should be very proud of. It's a time of history where we helped change the world. And I think we set the star very, very high for anybody who's following us.
We helped black people raise their heads and say, I can do it.
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear.
I can go anywhere I want to go. And I remember a friend of mine saying, America's not perfect, but I'll hold her hand until she gets well.
What you just saw is Amron that actually flew those missions. The people that were talking there were the people that was involved in, like Roscoe Brown. He was one of the lead commanders on that raid in Berlin. And the rest of the guys, they actually participated in the war, the fight itself. And that is a short version of about an hour-long presentation that's called Double Victory. The double victory was to win the war in Europe and win the civil rights war at home. And you know, that's the war we're still fighting, but it's much improved. It's a lot of progress has been made, and like one of the men said in there, you know, it takes time for change. Change is coming. In my estimation, we live in the greatest country on earth, the United States. And I've traveled around the world, and I haven't seen any place that I'd rather live. So, how about time for a couple of questions? If you got any questions, I'll try to answer them, and if I can, and I'm not going to take all of the questions. I'm going to have some of these guys down here take some of them too. So, any questions? Yes, sir.
What do you think, because as a teacher, I'm always thinking about my students, what's the one lesson that was such a thing that you would say for a young person that comes out of all this, because it's such a powerful story?
Okay.
That's a broad question.
The lesson I get out of this is what a great country we live in. Because at that time it was a lot of repression. And if you look, and that was like 60 years ago. And if you look at where we are today, we've progressed a long ways. And that's not just because of it just happened. People actually worked to make that happen. So the United States and the people that live here, you know, it's a mix. It's a mixed thing. We're all immigrants, except the black people. They came here as slaves. So if you came here as a slave, and today we have a black president, that shows that we've made a lot of progress within the United States. So the lesson I would say: you fight for what you believe in, and the righteousness will win. So that's what I get out of it. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Was the story of the president's wife, Eleanor Roosevelt, going up in the plane, was that true or was that manufactured?
No, that's true. She flew with Mr. Anderson, yeah.
And the president wasn't going to do nothing until that happened, right?
Well, I'm not going to say he wasn't going to do anything, but what I got out of reading the history of that Ms. Roosevelt was pretty much her own woman. Because when she decided to do that, they was calling the president and telling him, Danny, well, what are you calling me for? She does what she want to do. Let her fly. So that's kind of what they women are today, right? You listen. We do things on our own, but we all listen to our wives. Is there other questions? Yes, ma'am. never have the opportunity again to have that opportunity to participate in that. So what they did for themselves, and they did it for the people that followed after them. Now, I'm not going to take all the questions about that. We got one guy here, Don Elder, is original Tuskegee Airman. We have 8 in our chapter. They don't get out much anymore, and we have some pilots. Let's see, we got 2 that's 96, and the rest of them range from 92 to 87, I believe, to 85. So they don't get out much anymore. You understand, when you're 96, I just hope I can live that long and be able to move around. But occasionally, depending on what day it is, they might come out. But if they do come out, it's going to be in the summer. It's not going to be in the winter. Is that other questions?
They were recognized for their courage in battle, but the significant story is that they never were able to enjoy that. They got their Distinguished Flying Crosses, what, 15, 20 years ago? I mean, our nation never marched them out in front and provided those types of awards to them ostentatiously. And that's the real tragedy, the real sorrow. Some of them passed away probably without getting that type of recognition.
Well, that's the one thing that's sad about it. That's true. Now, to be honest with you, for some of the guys came back from the southern states, they were hung in their uniforms. Yeah, so it's that again shows how much we've grown as a nation and as a people. So it's always a positive and a negative side to something. And when I look at it, I'm on the governor's side on education. Education is everything. We just got to get our kids educated, and for more than one reason. I mean, they're going to be the people that's leading the world. These young people here are going to be us out leading our nation in the future. So we want them to be educated and able to do that. So we all should make an effort to get that done. And when I look at the young people that's in politics now, it's a mixed bag. It's everybody. And that's the way it should be. That's the kind of nation we are. Any other questions? Well, I thank you for having us.
Thank you. Our pleasure. Thank you. Well, this concludes our event. Again, I truly appreciate everyone for coming today, braving that slick road situation, and it's an honor to have you here. And oh my goodness, wow, it's just an honor. So thank you, Mr. Paul LaRue, for traveling as well too, and thank you for all your work in acknowledging great Ohioans. Thank you, Ms. Long, for your lovely rendition of the slavery spiritual, Let My People Go. Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, appreciate you coming again. Wonderful to have you. And maybe we'll do another one next year, so we'll keep you informed. So thank you for coming, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.